reducing migraines and screen glare problems.
Oh.
And the answer is, since I've been on vacation and not sitting in front of my computer the whole time, I have no idea where my glasses are.
That's awesome.
That's funny.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Looks like we've got a lot of friends here already.
Hello, friends.
Ryan is polishing his steel. All right. Well, just have a few things I wanted to talk about before we open up to discussion. We're going to do discussion questions again this week, and then we'll have an open mic at the end where we can all just talk about whatever is interesting to us. So before we do that, though, I just wanted to, well, first of all, this is the discussion up to chapter 55 of The Way of Kings of the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. We do have 2 previous discussions if you want to check them out, and they're linked down below. And, oh yeah, we didn't really introduce ourselves. So do you guys want to introduce yourself real quick? Victoria, you want to start?
Sure. Hello, I'm Victoria from A Musical Bookworm is my YouTube channel. And today I'm Victoria's friend as well.
And then we have Ryan and Kristen, the husband and wife team.
Yeah, we're from Seeking Stories, and we don't have a clever name this week because someone was cramming at the last minute.
Yes, Kristen just had an epic reading experience.
How many pages did you read in the last 12 hours?
500.
500 pages.
Wow. I don't know how you did that. You have a magical ability.
Oh my word.
I could not do that.
Reading spren.
Reading spren. That's you.
Good reading spren.
I didn't realize Kristen was as behind as she was.
Yeah.
But she's caught up now.
Dang.
So for anyone who wants to know, it is possible to read half of a Stormlight Archive book in one day.
Not for me.
Not recommended, I'm sure.
No, not doing that again.
And we also have Michael over here. Michael.
Hello. Yeah, Michael from the channel Michael Nip.
Hi, Michael Nip.
Hello.
All right. And I just also wanted to tell you guys we do have a group where we have discussions and sometimes like announcements and occasional votes, and where we post related video content that's related to this read along. And that will be in the description of this video after it ends. And also in all of my videos, I have a link to that group in the description. And I just wanted to thank a few people who've been joining the discussions in there. I really appreciate that. We've got Richard, and we've got Kayla, we've got Monique, and Leslie, and they all have channels, and they're wonderful. You'll probably hear them talking, and you'll probably see them on the screen up here. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for talking with us. That's so much fun. So okay, it's been a few minutes, so we can probably jump into the questions. So we'll just start with the first one, and you guys can just share your thoughts. You can share them about anything, though, if you want. If you don't have an answer to the discussion question, and like I said, we'll have an open mic later, but we'll just put the discussion question up here in case you want to chat with us about those. So, was there a scene or chapter that really grabbed your attention during this chunk of chapters?
So hard to pick.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing section. Very action packed.
Let's see. I know there was a couple really big ones where we learned about things that happened. Well, there was one that happened where we learned about Ambrand in Kaladin's past, which is like something we heard about in the first chapter, but we didn't really know what happened there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Go ahead, Ryan.
A big one for me was actually right near the end of where we're supposed to be, or it's a chapter 54, so right near the end of where we're reading. It's Dalinar and Sadeas's conversation, where Sadeas at least appears to be on Dalinar's side. I guess time will tell if that is true or not. But it's interesting how, I guess as you guys put it, it's a Sanderland. Some of the big reveals are starting to happen. And for better or worse, Sadeas appears to be on Dalinar's side for, quote, old time's sake. And I'm interested in seeing if that plays out, because that's totally a reversal of what we've come to know of Sadeas' character and Dalinar's expectations of him. So that was a big moment for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very surprising. And it makes sense because Dalinar was told to trust Sadeas in his visions. So we're kind of starting to see that come together a little bit. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see if
At least
that stays that way.
That part of the reason started to pay off a little bit.
Yeah. For me, Shallan's story was really fascinating this time around. And especially where we left her. And she was just kind of exiled with none of her goals met at all. And I honestly, I have no predictions for going forward because I have no idea what is going to happen to her at this point. And even Yasna says, like, you've ruined everything, basically. She's like, you had a great chance and you threw it away. And so I'm just like, whoa. I wonder what's going to happen there.
I don't know if it was in this section because I've read more than maybe what we're discussing today, but I was extremely I think it might be from the section we're discussing, but I was extraordinarily fascinated by the chapter where she's freaking out because she's drawing all those pictures of those things. Very Stranger Things-esque.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Is anyone ever going to eat bread and jam the same way again now?
Bake your own bread. That's the lesson.
And if someone offers it to you, bread, make sure they have jam.
Yeah, make sure you eat the jam.
Yeah,
I'll always eat the jam.
Well, I remember when we started doing this, I wrote down like every chapter name. And when I wrote down strawberry, I'm like, strawberry? Like, what in the world is going to have to do with this story at all? But there you go.
That was interesting too, to have strawberries in it, because and he was saying how they're rare, and I was like, wait, is this like a strawberry from Earth? Is that why they're rare? Do we have the Cosmere and Earth like colliding?
Well, it's like that's earlier in the book they talk about how chickens are rare in that part of the world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Interesting.
Yeah. Chicken and strawberries.
Two wonderful things, chickens and strawberries.
That's true.
But not together.
Strawberry jam on chickens. Sorry, Chris, we're derailing this so badly.
You're good.
Michael, do you have your can of LaCroix?
I don't. I'm out of all my sparkling waters.
Oh, sad times.
That's okay, Michael. I've got one for you.
Oh, nice.
Ooh,
Awesome.
Ice. I like those. Those are tasty.
Finding out that Wit is Hoyd was mind-blowing.
Yes.
Because I'd read a little bit about up on the Cosmere before starting this, kind of like the thing Brandon Sanderson writes on his website. It's kind of like pretty much spoiler-free for the books, but like, hey, here's the big deal. And I just didn't see that coming at all. That such a large character in the grand scheme of all Sanderson's Cosmere books was like right there in front of us for most of this book. We didn't even know it, which I guess is the point of his character.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm reading the third book of Mistborn, Era 1, right now, and I just got to a part where Hoyd also appears there. And so I was like, whoa! It was interesting to see them happen kind of simultaneously.
Cool. And I think the first year of Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive first 5 books take place relatively close to each other. Have I read that right? And like in the Cosmere timeline?
Maybe.
The first and
sure.
Yeah, the first year.
I think they're a few hundred years apart.
Okay. So no, not at all.
I think. I could be wrong. We'll get lots of corrections in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, right.
Teft experimenting with spheres with Kaladin after Kaladin survived the high storm. Yeah, so Teft seems to know a lot about Kaladin and what's happening to Kaladin. I'm wondering why. Like, how does Teft know what's
Why does
happening?
Teft know the thing?
And what does he know?
Yeah.
He's super vague about his past.
Yes.
And there's that one passing comment, not really so much comment, but it's like you get his perspective for a short, very, very
for like
short
2 pages.
Yeah, brief bit. And he has this thought. I forget what the word he uses is, but he describes what I'm imagining is a name for the people who absorb Stormlight. I think I just can't remember what the word is now. And he has this passing thought, and it implies that he has had direct involvement or experience with them and something. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what it was. I was like, wait a minute. It's intriguing.
Very intriguing.
Captain Rock. I mean, I think that's the way it's set up, but they're definitely
that's
the most fun of the Bridgemen.
And
you find out that Teft was a soldier before because he accidentally stepped right up into the role that he was placed in.
Yeah. That's one of those moments you just have to smile at Kaladin and be like, you know what you're doing sometimes.
And he does the same thing with Rock at the end where he basically teases Rock into using his bow.
Yeah.
Who are the I'm gonna say that wrong.
The word that I was looking for, maybe, because isn't that what Teft says? Like, I them and.
Yeah. That's the part I was talking about. That's the word I couldn't think of. Envisagers. But
Hello. That was one of my favorite. I can't say it's my favorite. That was one of the scenes that stood out to me too, though, because it was just so exciting when Still is like on Kaladin's chest, like fighting off the Death Spren, and then Teft like gives him the Stormlight, just like. The first time I read it was really exciting too.
Sanderson's just so good at putting little clues in. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just gonna say, without going too far from that scene, Kaladin's pre-High Storm speech, where he's basically like, "Hey, we're gonna stick it to the man," and he's like, "I have no idea if I'm gonna survive this."
Yeah.
He's like, "If I do, that's gonna be a really powerful speech, and if I don't, then I just wasted their time anyway." And it's super good.
Yeah. That whole High Storm bit was incredible. It played out a little bit differently than I was expecting it to. Like, I was expecting to be like kind of like this big moment of like Kaladin glory, and he just like gets knocked unconscious and has a dream, but it was still pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the dream, Angela mentions that dream is, and I don't know if it's just because this is a reread, but that dream when he's like flying through everywhere, you see little glimpses of all kinds of things that you don't understand at all. But like on a reread, you kind of understand a lot of it, and you're like, "Oh crap! I need to start like writing this. Like, I need to write notes on this chapter because I don't know if I fully understand everything still, but I understand a lot more than I did the first time."
Well, I'm sure that plays into the interludes as well. Like, there's things that like obviously make sense, but then I'm sure there's a lot that just kind of goes over like your head during the first read.
Speaking of the interludes, I was very curious about the lady who was destroying art. And we don't really get any explanation why and what her purpose is exactly. So I'm very interested in that at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm wondering, this just occurred to me, but the interlude about the female Ardent who is measuring Spren. Everyone's like, whoa. It's like, 'cause it seems like kind of an odd thing to just throw in there. But when you start to think about like, talking about all these interesting things that Syl has been doing, and I don't know, just I don't have anything concrete, but it makes me wonder, like, someone has done something that has made her be different than other.
Well, okay, so chapter 37, one of the it's called Sides, I think. It's one of Kaladin's flashbacks, and Kaladin's mother says, Spren appear when something changes. They are the heart of change and therefore the heart of all things.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's some sort of major clue there.
Yeah, before we move on, Angela mentions that that's her favorite interlude. She also made a video with like her science. Was it Science Behind the Magic? Is it Magic Behind the Science? It's her series that she does where she talks about science and fantasy books. And she talks about quantum mechanics being in. You should check out that video. She talks about quantum mechanics being in that series. I had to explain it to Amanda, and then I realized, like, oh, that's if you've ever read up on quantum mechanics, that's the what's their texting app called? The span reads. The span reads.
Oh yeah.
Like that's like a function that could, in theory, be like a quantum mechanic function. So yeah, Amanda was the same way. We read that chapter. She's like, "What was the point of this?" So I was like, "It means a lot, kind of, but not directly to the characters that we care about right now."
Yeah.
That's Angela's right there below us on the screen. If you want to check out her video, just check out that channel.
Real quick, something to mention was the one of the very first it might be the very first interlude that we get with the Pure Lake. That's where we see people that are looking for Hoyd. That's easy to forget. I think
I totally forgot that.
Yeah, there's actually 3 different people that are talking to that guy in that interlude, and they're looking for Hoyd, and then we find out later on who Hoyd is.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. I had totally forgotten that.
And they hide that line in there because they always talk about, oh, we're looking for this person. You have the description. Yeah, we have the description. Do have all the names we gave you. Yeah, we have all the names. And at the very end, they drop Hoyd. It's almost like a throwaway line.
Yeah. Well, because it was my first Cosmere book, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I forgot that was your first one, Michael. It's a one to start with.
Yeah. And I just finished Elantris, so I got to see another Hoyd spotting too.
Nice.
Everyone has mentioned the 2 biggest scenes for me, but I feel like we could probably talk about them a lot if that's appropriate. But I guess all of Shallan's parts near the end of her area of the section are huge, but the Amaram section for me was like the biggest, like most focal or like central part of the reveals that we got this section.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's super action packed, and then it's revisiting something that we kind of didn't understand the first time, and we get a lot more context to it. We get to finish it out, and then now we understand why Kaladin is the way that he is.
It's the focal point of his life.
Yeah,
it's really, really rough.
Yeah.
That's like so important too, to understand Kaladin and why. I mean, he already didn't really like the light eyes before then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's enough that he did not take a shard blade when he had the chance because he wanted to stay in dark eyes, which I think it was Victoria. You predicted that he would get. I think Victoria and Ryan both predicted.
One of you 2 did, yeah.
Yeah, we just
what did we predict?
It had already happened.
Yeah, I was thinking that Kaladin would kill a shard bearer. But I thought it would happen like at the end of like book 1 or something. I didn't think it already happened in his past.
Well, he could do it again. I know, you never know.
That's true.
I mean,
I was gonna say to Kristen's, he could do it again. That's another prediction I have, is that he's gonna have another chance, because I feel like that would be a good setup.
And will he refuse?
Oh, now he has. You're right. Yeah, he's faced with the choice again. So I have a feeling we're gonna see that eventually.
Yeah. I also, because of his whole like annoyingly persistent bitterness against Light Eyes, makes me think he has to at some point be forced into some situation with Dalinar, because he's like the one person that.
Well, because he talks about Dalinar all the time, or in his inner monologues, it's like, yeah, but Dalinar, no one can really be like a just character.
But like, he is.
We think.
Well, I mean,
we've seen inside of his head at least.
Yeah.
More than Kaladin gets to do.
Yeah.
That's true.
But he beats, and maybe it's because I've read the other series, but the scene where he is able to beat a shard bearer with like a spear and a knife is just, it's like, I think I like that action scene more than some of the other crazy action scenes that we've got, because the power imbalance is so strong, and it really does show off just how good Kaladin is at fighting. Like, he's just very, very good at fighting in a way
that way you can do it.
It establishes it way more. Like, we've seen him do his kata in the chasm. We know that he was like powerful because of his status with with the Amaram land dispute stuff, but we actually get to see him say, "Hey, we're taking down this Light Eyes." They take down one Light Eyes. Then like, we're taking down this guy that has a shard plate. It's a cool scene because he gets his spear cut up and then it flies up in the air and then he gets to spin around and do the final stab. It's a very good, like very like cinematic action scene.
Yeah.
I would love to
Oh,
watch
yeah.
that in a movie.
Absolutely.
But then it's just so powerful.
Sorry, go
And then
ahead.
he just walks away. He's like, "I'm done. I hate everything.
Yeah.
I'm done with this."
Anderson's either watched a lot of movies or played a lot of video games.
Oh yeah.
Maybe both.
No,
Yeah. I always come back to the movie side of things. Like, I just can't wait to see. Hopefully, this get adapted someday. Just because scenes like that, and the scene with Zeph at the beginning with the lash, things like that, just needs to
We
be
just need
seen
to
on
see all the
screen.
action scenes.
Yeah.
oh man, Amaram is such a piece of trash.
No, all the more bits we get with Kaladin and his fighting and his amazingness makes me want to answer the question of when did this whole Stormlight thing start? Like, was he born that way? Did something happen to him that, like, when, you know, at what point did his ability that he has yet to become aware of?
Can become aware.
No, when did it start?
When did it start? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
In his flashbacks, they haven't really shown anything of him being a kid and that happening. I don't think. I think
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
time we see that he's already a bridge man. I think.
I think you're right, Victoria.
So it could be something more recent somehow that came upon him.
yeah. I just want to know what it was.
Yeah.
I want to know when he's going to encounter Amaram again. Like, I feel like that has to happen.
Probably.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they're talking about him coming to the plains.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be coming. So
hmm
I just love Christy's knowing look on there. She's just standing there not saying anything.
I try not to like look at Christy or Michael when I'm like talking about hypotheticals.
You guys have good poker faces.
Yes.
Good poker faces.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Thank you, everybody in the chat who is not spoiling everybody right now.
It must be hard.
Christy, what was your favorite section? You said that it wasn't the high storm section. What was your section for this passage?
My favorite scene.
Great quote.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm just making sure. Yeah. I really loved it when Syl was saving Kaladin from the death spread, and then Tef figures out what Kaladin is, and I really love that scene because it's kind of hinted at quite a bit. But honestly, I love finding out what made Kaladin kind of be the way he is too. That was really important the first time through. This I was already like full of Kaladin love, but I remember that was really powerful the first time I read it.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy on that note, Christy, that scene with Amaram, according to the book, only took place 1 year before the events of today. Like, it seems like much more than a year went by, but I guess he was only a slave for like 8 or 9 months or something like that.
Well, I can't remember the very beginning, but basically he gets branded with a slave at the end of that section. Branded as a slave at the end of that session. Then we see him broken down even more, implying that he had like 2 or 3 different failed escape attempts.
Yeah, with several.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kaladin crams a lot into his life.
It's
He's a busy guy.
This is like, maybe we should establish this because I've seen this. It's I'm not picking on Ryan's early Stormlight videos, but I've seen this on multiple occasions. We see like early Kaladin is just a broken shell of a human being who doesn't care about anything, and this is the justification where we find out why he is just so dead inside. And I think that really helps put into perspective, like, he's not just being whiny because he couldn't get his way. He just got beat down from the world over and over, and the people that were supposed to like protect him and help him screwed him over. Like the Rosho and Amaram combo special deluxe. Like, not good.
You need to trademark that, Michael.
Oh man!
All throughout his childhood, he was looking up to the Light Eyes. He was not always about them. And Amaram was like the one that he was still holding to after spending so much time on the battlefield. He'd seen so Light as just being terrible, and then, but he was like, but there's still Amaram, and then it happened.
Well, the girl he had a crush on ends up marrying Roshan. Like, even she like turns on him, and it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, well, even that little jab she gives Kaladin when she's like,
with
Stormlight Archive version of dating Rillar, or whatever Roshan's son is. Like that was painful too. Like basically just called him what, Crumling or something like that.
Just treat him like a servant.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear some more theories from you if you have not read past chapter 4, like Ryan and Kristen, who've only read a couple, maybe, as long as you're careful.
I've read 2 chapters beyond where we should have.
Not me.
What? Okay, this is a weird question. Maybe it's unrelated. What drove you, Ryan, to break the curfew? What was the inciting event that made you want to read the next 2?
Well, I don't know what the inciting event in the book was, but the scenario surrounding it was...
It was just the momentum then?
Yeah, I was home with the kids. Kids were in bed. Kristen was visiting family in town, and
he was like, I'm going to stay until I finish it.
Yeah, I read like 200 pages that day, and I just got to end of chapter 55, and I'm like, I'm going to stay up all night and finish the book. No one can stop me. And then it was a work night, so 2 chapters later, I'm like, I got to go to bed. But tomorrow night,
all bets are off.
Yeah. We'll have to be careful in the Facebook group because spoilers will be more prevalent. Because I have a feeling once the Sander Lance starts, it will be hard to stop.
Yeah. Well, it's getting harder because I take notes at the end of every chapter, and my notes are getting sparser and sparser now because I don't want to take time to stop.
The same. I'm doing the same thing. My writing gets sloppier and sloppier because I'm writing really fast because I'm like, I need to keep reading.
Yeah, I'm with you, Victoria.
Oh yeah, so Rich asked the question, Christy mentioned the question, what do you guys think? And Victoria already said that she doesn't know. You have any ideas what's going to happen with Shallan? Because that storyline took some serious hard turns.
Well, I think she's going to go home because she has no other real choice at this point. So she's going to go home empty-handed, and we're going to meet more of her family and see what kind of people they are, and if they're going to be like super angry with her. I assume they will be.
Non-Balat will be.
Yeah, that crazy guy.
She's going to end up back out there somewhere.
Oh, she has to. She's too integral to the plot.
Yeah.
While we're talking about Shallan, can I just say that the moment where she like took the thing was like so Sanderson. It wasn't all you expected. It wasn't like this Ocean 11 planned out thing. It's just like, nope, I'm angry, taking it.
Yeah. Out of spite.
I mean, the moment where she's like, where Yasna decides to murk those people in the street is a very shocking moment when that happens. So you can understand the anger that Shallan would have when she decides to take the thing. And then she just can't figure out how to use it. And then when she finally does, she had basically unintentionally fakes a suicide, which is kind of dark and like super crazy. And then she, is in a like a mental hospital essentially.
Yeah. Which makes me think there's like, I mean, of course, we all know book 2 focuses on Shallan's backstory, and she kind of plays herself up to be like, nothing happened in my life. But she's alluded to things happening in her life.
Yeah, she keeps referencing something she did before she left.
Yeah.
And then there's that reference to the 10 heartbeats. Remember that? She holds out her hand.
I do remember that.
Like, wait a minute. What? Or I don't know if it says 10 heartbeats, but there's a reference to heartbeats. And she holds her hand out. And you're like, okay. So that was interesting.
Little foreshadowing, maybe?
It's all in the same. I think it's all in the same bit where she's reminiscing about her stuff that she's not necessarily regrets, but feels guilty about.
I'm trying so hard not to look at Christy right now.
I know, me too.
Christy's trying so hard to play poker
Like
face.
melting down.
Disappear.
I don't see. My problem is I kind of know what is foreshadowed and what isn't, and I'm trying to decide if pointing out the text that you already read, like specifically pointing you back to that text, counts as spoilers or not.
That's a good point Angela said, though. I love how prevalent the number 10 is in this world.
Oh, that's interesting because, like, when the Codex talks about all the number symbolism all the time in their work, I'm always like, I don't remember the numbers.
Yeah. Oh, there's even like 10 bucks. There's even 10 bucks.
Yes, there are.
Or they're going to be.
Yeah.
Heartbeats, radiance. Oh, we found out that Dalinar is like the Order of Talanat, which is the one of the radiance, the one radiant that didn't come back.
Yeah, that was super interesting. Yeah.
I forgot
So, Chrissy, were we still on the predictions thing?
Yeah, go for it. You guys can talk about whatever you want. I just have them there for more inspiration.
Well, because Michael brought up the whole, radiance thing. And there's that whole, what is it, Feverstone Keep?
Fever, yeah.
And no one knows where it is. So my theory, this is probably, like, I don't know. I don't have any theories for, like, going forward. My mind's just, like, spinning for the most part. But, like, the only theory I have is that Feverstone Keep is somewhere in the middle, under, around the Shattered Plane somewhere. And that's going to play a big part of the climax.
Could be.
This is a weird question. What year was The Way of Kings published again?
2010.
Okay.
Well,
Well, no, I wasn't trying to make that joke. I was just trying to make the obscure reference. I've made the joke before that the Way of Kings, or like the Stormlight Archive, is just Kingdom Hearts. The Feverstone Keep vision sequence is that is a scene from one of the Kingdom Hearts games, where like they stick a bunch of their magic swords in the ground and leave.
Do we know if Sanderson has played Kingdom Hearts?
I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm trying to figure out, because if it's 2010, it was before that game came out. So maybe Kingdom Hearts played or read Stormlight Archive.
Oh.
Yeah. Interesting. I just love it.
Angela thinks that he's played Kingdom Hearts.
I'm pretty sure he said he's done gaming to some capacity before.
I know he is a gamer. That's something I identified with, yeah.
Yeah.
One of his emails, how he loved Breath of the Wild. I was like, yeah, that's one of the 3 games I all the way through.
It's crazy in that scene, though, the one you were referencing, Michael, that there's like 300 shard blades.
Yeah.
And only like, 40, 50, 60 of them are accounted for in the world right now.
Amanda had asked me right before we read that chapter, she's like, where do the shard blades come from? How many of them are there? Where's all this stuff? She's like, first of all, do you know the answer to these questions? Second of all, am I supposed to know the answer to these questions at this point in the book? I was like, yes and no. But then, yeah, you hit that chapter and there's 300 plus shard blades they stab into the ground and walk away from. And then it immediately starts the war that you think it would if these things are as powerful as they are. Which is like, oh, wow, this turns real south real fast.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, the whole betrayal of the Radiance thing. Like, you're meant, and I probably don't know the whole thing, but throughout the first 3 quarters of the book, you're meant to think that the Radiance like turned against them like violently, whereas it seems like they just like gave up.
Here's a theory. Dalinar is a Radiant, but he doesn't know it.
Ooh,
maybe he's a Radiant, like incarnated or reincarnated or something, and he's gonna like come into his own because he keeps having visions about the Radiants. I don't know.
I like that.
And I noticed that
in the dark.
that dream, I guess that it's called, that Kaladin has, is during a high storm. And there's the whole thing that he wakes up and these guys are restraining him. They're like, you were like flailing around. We had to hold you down. Like, this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Is that so it was like, is that just a coincidence, or is this supposed to be a reflection of what Dalinar is experiencing? Like, and now someone else is experiencing it too.
Yeah. Time will tell.
Well, yeah.
I think it has to be tied because I think that our characters have to meet each other eventually, and they're gonna have they're gonna have things in common and similar experiences. I know they're all gonna meet eventually. That has to happen.
Yeah.
So yes,
I mean, so many
I'm
of them,
definitely on board with that.
Kaladin's so near like all the major players, he just doesn't care.
Yeah, he's like, I've got stuff to do.
Yeah.
I've got codes to maintain.
Yeah.
All right, you guys can still keep leaving us theories and predictions down below. Would love to hear more of those. I'm going to put another question here because it was brought to my attention recently that some people love Brandon's action scenes. And I don't care about action, so I never thought about asking you guys. But I know that he's good at them because sometimes I'll actually like pay attention. Good, but so if you have a favorite action scene, I'd love for you to tell me which and why. I think he does write them well. I just don't.
For me, it's actually kind of hit or miss. Some of them I really like, and some of them I'm like kind of lost reading them because I'm immediately trying to imagine it in my head, and there are some that I'm just like, I'm just gonna find out how it ends. And some of them are really engaging. So for me, it's kind of hit or miss.
I think Zeth was my favorite action scene this time around because we also I like how Sanderson sometimes teaches us things through action sequences. Like he teaches us how things work in a way we hadn't seen before. So in Zeth's action scene, we saw how lashings work in a little bit of a different way because he was using people. And he was like throwing them to the ceiling and using them. And so that was an interesting new tidbit, I thought. And then Zeth also as a character, we learned some things about how he's changing and how he's developing while he was fighting because he's crying while fighting. And so he's going through this like big internal dilemma and like moral issues and he's losing his religion, it looks like, and he's kind of questioning, he's so far gone from his religion at this point. There's another reference in I think like either chapter 55 or 54 where they're talking about like Shin people, and if they even get in a fight, that's a failure to the Shin people. And so if you think about how far Seth has come from that, he's slaughtering like hundreds of people. So you can imagine the internal struggles he's having.
Yeah. I actually that scene that you're specifically referencing, Victoria, is an action scene of his that I liked better than the very first one. His very, very first in the prologue or prelude, whatever it was called, to me was a little drawn out to really get engaged in the action. And I kind of understood what was happening, but action wise, it wasn't like forming for me. So but this last one was really, I think because we'd gotten all the exposition out of the way. And so we didn't have to stop to understand what he was doing meant. We just knew what it was.
Like Victoria was saying, he changes as a character even within that scene too. It's like, I shouldn't be killing these people, but I have to. But wait a minute, this was all set up. Now I'm super angry. Yeah. It's a powerful scene for his character.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there at the same time as he's killing people. You're also learning a lot. So I thought that was a really interesting thing as like a writer to be able to cram all that information into an action sequence, I think is a special skill.
Yeah, that is hard. I was just talking about this with my writing group earlier, who Jack is here. Hi, Jack. It is really beneficial if you're going to have a lot of talking and exposition to have some kind of action going on in the scene. But it's pretty amazing that he can do action on a pretty epic scale and then have the scene where Dalinar is like, I don't like, killing people anymore. What's wrong with me? And so that for me was probably one of the ones where I was most riveted because there was such an internal struggle going on.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that, but he really times it well. And he's a big outliner, so I'm sure that was something he planned to do. Yeah,
that scene with Zeth, if and when it's adapted, that needs to be like a one-shot scene where like the camera never cuts. Something from like, I don't know if you guys have seen The Kingsman, The Secret Service. It's a kind of a violent movie. It's with Colin Firth.
Just a bit.
It's like British people.
I've seen parts of it. I don't think
Yeah.
I've seen the whole thing, but I've seen scenes that were very graphic.
Yeah,
they're very
there's one
violent.
kind of infamous fight scene that like the camera never cuts, just kind of follows the main character around, and it's too graphic to really recommend. But I feel like if they ever adapted this into something
From a
cinematic perspective,
yeah,
it would kind of warrant that type of treatment where the camera just never blinks, just kind of
Mm.
doesn't go from cut to cut to cut, kind of like Jason Bourne style. It's kind of like camera falls around the room tracking the whole thing.
Or like Daredevil.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say Daredevil's the one
Yeah.
that I think of.
Yeah.
I think my favorite action scene, well, the one at least I was most emotionally invested in, was the one where Kaladin was fighting the Shard Bearer.
Mhm.
That was just,
That's a great one.
yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That one was really hard because he just like watched his men almost all die.
Yeah. Because you go into the fight so emotionally charged already. So
Mhm.
it's,
Mhm.
I love
Yeah,
it.
and well, you've been waiting for it for so long.
Yeah, I know. and because I think you're, at least for me, you're more engaged by the actual like beats of the fight, because as we mentioned before, it's such an unbalanced match that you want to know how in the world does he win. So like following every single beat, like from that move to that move to see how it happens. Yeah.
That's a good point. I think when I'm watching a movie in an action sequence, I'm much more likely to kind of tune out for a while. But when I'm reading it, it's a different experience because I also have like the character's internal dialogue. And so I know a little bit more about what they're experiencing. So I've enjoyed reading the action sequences in this book a lot more than I ever would probably enjoy watching on film.
Yes.
I think because of that extra aspect.
Mhm.
That's why a good action scene needs stakes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably the ones you tune out from don't really have enough stakes.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think now. Are there scenes that I really tune out in Stormlight? Because I remember there were in Mistborn for sure. Because I felt like there was just a lot of scenes that were there to be actiony, visual, very trying to be actiony visual. But Stormlight, usually there's a really big character anchor that's actually does anchor my scene better.
Right. Well, because in Mistborn, Vin just has so much training to go through.
Yeah.
And it just, I mean, due to the nature of how the magic system works, it has to be somewhat actiony, but it just takes forever and a day to get through. But the ending is worth it. We won't spoil it from Michael Nip
Or me.
or Kristen.
That actually excites me because I love action, and I like the way that Sanderson writes it, both large and small scale. I think that I like action scenes in general, both visually and reading, but the way that Sanderson describes them, I'm able to follow, move by move, beat by beat, a lot more than I am with some other writers.
Mhm.
And so, like, the Kaladin versus Shardbearer scene was great because the individual moves there you could see, and there's stakes with every swing when you're fighting a Shardbearer.
Yeah.
So like that's such a big part when if it touches anything that isn't, air, something bad happens.
Yeah. Oh, Michael, you are gonna absolutely love the magic system in Mistborn. Like it's just you saying that it's right up your alley.
Yeah.
Okay. But even like he can obviously handle the small scale, but even when he's talking about Kaladin watching the big battles happening with Sadeas, and then when Galador comes in, the tactics that are going on, I think he does a really good job at doing it from overhead basically too as well.
Mhm.
Where like my wife really doesn't like action scenes, but she can generally follow what's going on in the battles there as well.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, Michael. Making the battles interesting from the perspective of a bystander is really hard to do, and Sanderson did it really well.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a really good point from Rich. So in Mistborn, each book develops a different magic system, and so you see it like almost not like right away, but like the book explores the magic systems quite a bit, and so there's a lot of action just showing you how the magic works, like that first scene with Zeth. where he's showing you how the lashings work. And I think Rich makes a good point. In Mistborn, it's not a secret, how most of the Mistborn magic works in book 1. So throughout the book, you're using it a lot. So it's possible in future Rosharan books that we're going to have more action scenes like the ones in Mistborn, because there will be more of the magic build by then.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's just hard with Stormlight Wave Kings right now because, as Michael was saying, actually, I'm not sure if you said in the video, we were just talking earlier, but it's just so hard to describe the story without giving anything away to anyone. And that includes the magic systems to an extent, I feel like.
Well, like, I feel like with most stories, you can give a general overview of the setup without spoiling. Like that's the summary of a book is. Like, that's how you try to get people hooked on this book. But like for this book, every character moment, every time you figure out, because the plot is a complete mystery to the characters. So every time you figure out anything, that's a big spoiler.
Yeah.
Like the world is such a mystery to even the characters in it that I've thought about it way more than I would like to admit. It's extremely hard to like tell people what this book is about.
Yeah. What did we determine earlier this week, Michael? It's the plot of Way of Kings is people trying to figure out the plot of Way of Kings.
Yeah. That was your great quote there. And it's like every single character has their own individual storyline. And like Sanderson talks about that in his lectures. He's very good about this character has this motivation and they go through this arc. And all of them tie together. That's part of the draw. But at the same time, you're figuring out bits of the world as the characters do. And then you have to figure out why it all ties together and how it all ties together, which on paper doesn't sound very interesting, I don't think. Like, it sounds like it would be so slow. And, this is a long book. For some people, it will be slow. But I feel like it's very engaging throughout because you're invested in the story, like the individual character storylines enough that you're drawn in.
Yeah. No, it's the characters that sell it at this point. It really is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because normally if there's a book that like their main reveals are like what was that book that we read for middle grade March? Do you remember, Michael? Boy? Is that what it's called?
The Book of Boy.
The Book of Boy. That's what it was.
Oh yeah, Victoria read it too, yeah. Yeah, that one, like the reveals were like hinging on like a really basic thing about the main character Boy. And so when it finally came, this reveal, it was like, that's it to me.
Yeah.
It was a weird book.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that sentiment.
It's just like there wasn't that Sanders. It didn't have what Michael was just talking about that Sanders has. There just wasn't the same investment in it.
We got lots and lots of Yasna love.
Yasna. She is so cool. Yasna is so cool. I love how she's so very wise, and you can tell that Yasna is wise and that Shallan is so much younger and still learning. And like you can tell that I just feel like Shallan is going to look back on things and be like, yeah, Yasna was right. I feel like that's that dynamic there. But yeah, her wisdom is pretty neat, and their conversations are very fascinating. They're philosophical conversations.
I appreciate her teaching style. Definitely. For the most part. I'm not sure I'm quite with her on the philosophy lesson, although it's probably the most exciting philosophy lesson anyone's ever experienced.
You mean you didn't like the practicum she took her on? Some field experience?
Short of the philosophy lesson chapter. She's just kind of you can't really make an argument against Yasna, I don't think. And because I like Dalinar so much, and Dalinar's super trusting of Yasna, I have to trust her.
It'll be interesting when and if we see like Dalinar and Yasna talk, or even like Yasna and Kaladin, like just like some other personalities. We have only seen Yasna with Shallan and some other minor characters. Like, what is her personality like when she's talking to other people that she either knows really well or is complete opposites from her?
Yeah, I wonder if she will encounter Kaladin at any moment. We'll see.
I'm convinced Kaladin's gonna like interact with everyone.
I wanted to share with you guys a little bit from Melanie Frenchie, because I asked her if she wanted to contribute to the live stream. She is in France and she cannot be here. But we all love Melanie. She was here for the last read along that we did for the Hunchback of Notre Dame. She was actually one of the co-hosts, and so she wanted to talk about. She loves it when Shallan is struggling with morality, because a lot of times that kind of results in a talk with Yasna, and Yasna teaches about like the moral grayness of their situation, whereas Shallan is young and still struggling with, I guess, the desire for morality to be simple. And they have some really intense conversations about that. So she says, I love Shallan struggling with morality, all in caps. It has to be in caps because that's how much she loves it, she says. And she says, Yasna's it's the perfect way to get a philosophy lesson in fantasy and to introduce Gavilar's character in this story. In their conversation, they did talk about Gavilar, which is interesting. We haven't really talked about Gavilar much on this stream, actually.
We have not.
But and she says she cannot wait for Yasna's book in the future, which
does she get a book?
She'll get a flashback. Brandon has said she gets a flashback book. Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
All of the flashback books have actually been revealed, though he's already changed which numbered entries will be whose flashback.
Whoa.
I'll look that up real quick.
It's all pretty. We don't really know if it'll actually turn out exactly the way he's planning, because every time he writes them, things change.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's also said that the person whose flashback book it is doesn't have to be alive for that to be their flashback book, so they could die still.
Oh, how interesting. That worries me.
So yeah,
we get concerning.
We get Kaladin, Shallan, Dalinar, some characters named Venli and Eshonai, Zeth, Lift, Renarin, Shalash, Talinel, and Yasna. Some of those names you'll know, and some of those names you will not know.
When you say Renarin, like Renarin,
I said Renarin. That's the other son.
Interesting that he gets, because he's like a throwaway character in this book.
I usually make that argument. He did something in the chapters that we just read that I thought was interesting, and I didn't realize that he did it.
What was it?
Like, in hindsight, I assumed that someone else did it, but Renarin it was a conversation that he was having with Dalinar, and he actually had a really good idea, and I can't remember what it was. But I did not realize in the first read through, I'd lost the knowledge that Renarin was responsible for helping with that decision.
Yeah, are you talking about when Dalinar's talking about his visions and Renarin's like, check with Yasna, she's a verse to
maybe that's what it is. And is it him that comes up with the idea of, well, just prove them? That's what it was. He was like, either you're crazy, or you just try to ignore them, or you just try to prove them. And that was Renarin's idea, and he pushed that forward. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Angela said the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, he's really like unassuming, but that's interesting that he's gonna like be important enough to get a backstory book.
Well, he's like the introverted younger brother who doesn't get the spotlight right now. So
it's a medical problem.
Oh yeah, and with the
medical problem. But he's getting his father promised.
Yeah. Daddy said he gets a Halo suit.
Oh yes, thank you for telling us that. That's a good point to remember. All right, let me see if there was more from Melanie. I can't remember. Oh, so okay, when Shallan was talking with Yasna after Yasna did her philosophy lesson, like outside,
field work.
Thank you. Yes, it was. Shalon's like, okay, what happened to you? Seriously, that's what I was thinking too. Like, I want to know, and that's what made me wonder if there was a book for her. And so I looked it up just like yesterday. I didn't know there was going to be a Yasna book. So, so Melanie wants to know. She already knew there would be a book, though. Melanie has read everything out there.
Of course.
And also, the fact that Yasna references sisters, which I didn't notice. So she's excited to hear about Yasna's sisters, which I am too. This family is amazing.
It's in passing. It was kind of earlier in the book, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she was like, she was talking to Dalinar, maybe.
Was it capitalized like it was like a organization?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure.
That's what I would have assumed.
I don't remember.
She didn't put
Yeah,
this.
I don't know. I do remember reading that too and noticing that.
Oh,
that
it's in chapter 45. Sorry, she did reference it.
Chapter 45.
Yeah.
Leslie says sisters in her group. So I think, yeah, some kind of versatilian. Is that what they... I don't know how to say that word.
Oh, okay.
So we're
like that.
Oh, so sisters who are also versatilians.
so not biological.
And it probably
sisters.
has to be women,
That would
right?
make
Because the men can't read.
That would make sense.
Except for the ones who want to rebel.
Unless they're Ardens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what. Okay.
Because so far, Yasna and Elokar are the only two confirmed children of Gavilar, correct?
I don't know. That's a good question. If anybody knows, let us know.
Yeah, because I think the sister's quote was the first time they'd ever alluded to anyone else in their family, whether it's, I mean, it sounds like they're part of a group, not biological, but yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, so I'm going to change the question again. This is the question that I had like a lot of notes on. I know that this is not everybody's type of question, so I really appreciate you guys bearing with me because this is the most interesting thing about Sanderson's writing. Thank you so much for bearing with me on this, everybody.
Of course.
So I really love it. Okay, I'll read the question first. There's all kinds of moral debates in Sanderson's work because he likes to contrast character values like Kaladin and Lirin. Lirin has all kinds of interesting things to say, and they're different from what his wife Hasina says, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon likes to show controversies from multiple angles. So I would love to talk about any of those if you guys want to share them. And I just wanted to say briefly, one of them that I really enjoyed was among the Bridgemen, you know, when Kaladin and Sigil, whenever they talk, it's really interesting because Sigil has traveled a lot and he shares perspectives from other cultures. And so I thought it was really interesting that, well, this one wasn't from other cultures, but Sigil thought it was a good thing for Kaladin to buoy up his men with what is essentially false hope. Sigil didn't believe in what Kaladin was saying essentially, and he used to hate Kaladin for saying, you know, you guys are gonna survive, and I'm gonna save you. And he was like, I can see now it's a good thing. It's like you're giving, you know, morphine to a dying person.
Yeah.
But I think Kaladin agrees with that because I just don't think it's easy to, like, I don't think he can lie about something like that. He's just so honest about that kind of thing. Like, he's too depressed to lie. But I don't think even if he could lie, I don't think he would. So I thought that was a really interesting debate.
I do think he struggles with that a lot because on one sense, we see him when he thinks it's hopeless, say, screw it, we can't do this, I give up. And he even has that moment where he says basically that. But at the same time, he has had interactions with Syl where he says something positive when he or he laughs when he doesn't feel like laughing, or he does something to help the morale of the men, which is it's not, I mean, it's kind of a lie when he doesn't really feel it, but he's doing it for the betterment of his men. Like I feel like he exists in a contradiction in that area where he doesn't for sure know how he feels about it.
I feel like though that he believes when he's doing it, usually I feel like he really believes that he can save them and there's a chance and he'll think of something.
I think.
Go ahead, sorry.
I agree with you. I think he's in the headspace, and maybe this is just me projecting. I think he's in a headspace where he says, I cannot consider the alternative at this point in my life. If I consider the alternative, that brings me to a bad place. I don't have the mental ability to even think about it at this point. So I just have to assume that there is a option for me going forward. And I cannot even think about not just coming up with an option and moving forward. Like he's up against a hard place and he says, I can't be that dark man again. So he just refuses to even consider the possibility that there is no hope for them, which is, I think, the wretch. Thank you, Angela. I think he struggles very, very, very hard there with that darkness.
Mm-hmm. Well, and on that note, Michael, he's, it's his hatred for the Light Eyes is, I feel like, as close to absolute as you can get. And I mean, of course, a lot of things have happened in his life that have kind of forced him into that corner in a way, but that's still a choice that he's made. And at some point, and it may have been with the Sigzil character, it may have been with someone else, where he's basically confronted with the kind of the notion of, well, what about in a world where dark eyes were ruling and light eyes were the slaves? How is that any different than what's going on now just with a different people group? So he has that kind of morality to consider too, which may play in the future.
Kaladin very much seems to buy into the power corrupts absolutely ideal. Yeah. And so watching him deal with that, obviously, because that's the stance that he's taking, he is so bought into the stereotypes that he has experienced with his own anecdotal life that he has just completely written off an entire class of people. I think that's, and I think that he's had this internal debate when he's talking about the small encounter that he had with Adolin. And we've seen Adolin be, kind of a jerk with women and all of these things. But at the same time, we know that Adolin cares about his father. And we know that Dalinar, at least from what we're seeing here, seems like a good person. We know that the stereotypes are not always true, but Kaladin has never been given a reason to think differently. And I think that is the internal debate that he's constantly, he is just so strongly bigoted that he won't see the other side.
Yeah. Well, and would it be safe to maybe predict that Dalinar is going to change that for Kaladin? I think that's kind of alluded to there in chapter 55, where we just left off, where he's watching Dalinar and he's watching Sadeas fight together, and he's thinking oh, he's honorable. That's not possible. There's no honorable Light Eyes. So yeah, I think obviously we're gonna see. I think Dalinar is gonna maybe shift that for Kaladin. If I was gonna make a prediction,
I agree.
I hope. I hope that's what happens.
They don't necessarily talk about it in the books, but you could also argue from Kaladin's standpoint, not sending people as bait to be slaughtered is the very littlest you could do for human dignity. Just because Dalinar doesn't do that doesn't make him good. It just makes him not as evil as Sadeas.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there's that interesting part where some character convinces Dalinar to try a bridge run with bridgemen. I forget who does it.
One of his attendants or someone,
engineers or something.
Yeah. Someone. It's one of his. Yeah.
So I wonder how that's going to play out. Kind of following your train, Victoria. If you're just kind of giving a hypothetical here, but if Kaladin does see Dalinar's light eyes, and then it comes to light, oh, but wait, Dalinar is training a group of bridgemen. That's just going to look really bad in Kaladin's eyes immediately.
Although it didn't work.
But did they try it already?
Yeah, well, they built a bridge and it broke. Because he wanted to try doing it because he didn't want to do the whole bait thing, but he was like, well, maybe we can use it at the beginning to get there quicker, and then, but not push them to the front lines. And so they were trying to do. The problem was the bridge they built didn't hold the weight of the siege machine.
That's right. That was a week ago. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get everything I just said.
The other, I think for me, the first time reading through, one of the major moral things that came up was the whole idea of having the Parshmen on the bridge crews, like basically carrying bridges to fight his people, and then the whole experience that they have when they touch one of the bodies, and that clearly upsets him, but that they kind of just have to do it for, you know, practicality's sake. And like having to deal with that fact that Kaladin wants to treat him as an equal because they're in the same situation, but they kind of don't want to treat him as equal because they're afraid of him. Like they can't actually let him. He's only half a bridgeman. Like that is a very evocative moral dilemma.
Right. They say somewhere that the only thing lesser than a bridgeman is a parchment bridgeman.
Well, and Tef straight up hates him.
Yeah. See, Rita Reborn's quote prediction: Dalinar adds a churro shelf to Kaladin's soft serve ice cream stand.
I didn't know that was still a thing.
Well, that comes up every live stream.
Nice.
I think he's the one who originated it.
Yeah.
I saw a review. I don't know if anyone here has read Max Gladstone, but I saw his review of The Way of Kings, and he talks about how he totally side-eyes this book because there seems to be a monoculture who is made less than, kind of like how the ska is presented that way in Mistborn. And I was like, this is Brandon. Can't you just predict that there's something else going on here?
Right. Yeah. There's layers.
There's layers.
Nothing is what it seems.
Like nothing. Exactly.
Yeah. That's one thing reading Mistborn now almost on Way of Kings is that expect the unexpected. Even when you try to figure out the unexpected, it still surprises you.
I loved that scene, Angela. When they're talking about war and one of the Ardents made a comment there too, like that war isn't, I forget exactly what it is, I'd have to find it, but he was talking about how religion is sometimes an excuse for war, but it's not the real reason behind it. And Dalinar's like, who even cares about the reason? It just happens, and it would happen if there were no reason, you know? Like,
yeah,
it was just great scene.
Yeah.
The Alethi have a very, very odd perspective on war and infighting. Like where like it's encouraged as like political posturing to actually fight, which is, I mean, it comes across as extremely messed up to us.
Yeah.
Well, and then the culture they live in.
Yeah. Well, and the whole idea that Adeline's calling is dueling.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
At least dueling is like a competition. Well, it depends, because I guess we haven't seen dueling. We haven't seen what dueling means in the context of Stormlight.
Right.
Though, if you think about it in the Hamilton sense, it's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if there's ever to be peace in Roshar, the Alethi, you're gonna have nothing to do.
Reminds me of that race from the Aragon books.
It's been a long time.
The ones that are, it's like their society, their culture is built around fighting.
I don't even remember this.
The Urgles? Is that like their orcs?
Yeah.
Basically the orcs.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, Kayla mentions a cool thing that I also noticed was the women were dueling by seeing who could paint better.
That's right.
It was built into the society. They're all just, you know, there's political posturing with swords and there's political posturing with words and paintings.
Yeah.
And that's how women do it.
Crap. Somebody mentioned it earlier. I don't know if this is a world building thing. Somebody mentioned it earlier. Crap. I'm losing my train of thought while I'm talking. It was the idea of when the women write things, even if they're writing an autobiography of like dictation from men, they write their own subtext, which I think is super savage and also crazy interesting.
Yeah.
Because like it's like this secret thing that people who read it, the women who read it, are allowed to know, but other people will never know if you just read it out loud. It's like a crazy, awesome little world building thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other thing too, kind of on that note, kind of the differences between like the men and the women culture is within a culture. It is brought up several times that like the men have their own food and the women have their own food.
Yeah,
like different types of
that
food.
was weird. Okay. Well, and even there's like kid food, you know, like.
Yeah, I think the kid food is mostly just like women food, mostly.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. It's really random, but on the note of world building, did anyone notice that they basically allude to gravity and they call it ground spren?
Yes. That was so funny.
Like the ground spren, which pull us down.
Yeah.
The ground spread don't affect Syl.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how the people of Roshar don't understand Spren either, any more than we do, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting choice of Sanderson's to kind of put us on the same level as them in their own world. You know, like we don't know why they're attached exactly to everything in the whole universe.
Right.
We don't know how they work.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, well, honestly, it's like us, like in our world in science up until like, I don't know, 500-ish years ago. I mean, depending what culture you're in, of course. But, you know, there was a time when in our world, it's like, we don't know what any of this stuff is. We just kind of deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Rita Reborn says green chili is a man food for sure.
I'm okay with the way they do food because I love super spicy food.
Yeah, right?
I think the women eat sweet food. Is that what it is?
They do.
It's like everything is sweeter for women.
Yeah, I like sweet food too, though.
You can't have both.
I can't have ice cream and spicy food, man.
unless you're that couple in the interlude where the guy is just cooks food all the time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they were ardents, right? Ardents.
Yeah, they were
ardents.
ardents.
They want. Yeah.
Yeah, they do it.
So, Michael, here's the big question: who gets the chicken wings on Roshar?
I mean, for the chicken wings that I eat are definitely man food. 'Cause they're crazy. Yeah. I like it spicy.
It up to open mic because we're getting near the end here. But thank you so much for giving me so many more arguments, guys. That was so fun.
Yeah.
So I'll just say, talk about whatever you're most excited about. If there's anything you haven't gotten to yet, we'd love to hear about it.
Ryan, do you have any idea what the symbol head creatures are that Shalon sees, or Kristen? Do you guys have any theories?
I have no idea. Kristen?
No. I don't know, maybe. I'd have to think about it more.
I guess your mind is still processing 500
Kind
pages.
of, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to process back through everything I've read to see if there's anything else that it could be referencing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the first thing that pops in my head are those ridiculously nightmarish creatures that Dalinar experienced in that vision. But they're not
the things that are not Voidbringers.
Right.
The smoky bags.
Yeah. But there was no mention of symbols in his vision. So that's one of the things that's like, well, maybe not that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got nothing.
I don't either. I love the concept of them because it's really very much like played out like a horror scene when they're following her from the marketplace, and they're even in her room, and they're
right next to her.
Yeah, they're right next to her, and then she's in the hospital, I think, and she's sketching, and they're still there.
Yeah.
It has a very much a spiritual warfare vibe.
Absolutely.
Ooh, that's an interesting way of thinking about it.
That is.
Yeah. Well, and because that whole scene where she's running, almost like running away from them, and it's like they're constantly getting closer. It almost seems like their behavior, at least in the way it manifests in her sketching, seems to be influenced by the level of her guilt.
Oh,
I didn't even catch that.
I mean,
yeah, that's a good observation.
So that doesn't help me figure out what they are, but
yeah, That's an interesting observation, though. I'm wondering about. She heard "What are you?" whispered into her ear, and we also see that told to Zeth later.
Oh yeah.
By the king, he says, "What are you?" and Zeth says, "I'm death." So I wonder if Shallan is like somehow tied to Zeth. I don't know. She's like experiencing some kind of connection to him.
Maybe they're like demons, Bren.
The connection that I went to right away when I first read it was that it seemed very like Lovecraftian. Like if you're familiar with like the horror and Lovecraft, it's all very much like an intellectual ascent allows them to see like these previously invisible, like incomprehensible evil gods.
Yeah.
And so the first time I was reading that, I got that very strongly. Especially because it's just the way that it happens is she has to draw these things and it's like this invisible thing made manifest.
I remember after I was reading through that part, I had to flip into the back of the book and look at that reverse map of Shades.
I was going to ask if any of you guys remembered that was the term that was on the map.
Because again, I can't I can't stop thinking about the parallel to Stranger Things where they've got the upside down version of their world. And because Shadesmar is an exact inverse of the Roshar map, that it made me wonder, is she somehow seeing some weird, I mean, for lack of a better word, like an upside down vision of her world around her. And these things are part of it. I don't know. I remember I flipped back through into the map and I was just trying to figure out, I don't know. I was just looking at it to see what was there.
So an alternate universe happening that Shallan somehow gets to see.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Shallan is special.
If a little bit annoying at times.
Yeah.
How's everyone feeling on Shallan? I feel like that's the most controversial part everyone has in this book.
I don't mind her so much when she's like actually pursuing study, but I told Ryan earlier, from the very beginning that her mission is introduced, I'm just like, that's dumb. That's not going to work. It's going to fail. Like, it made me frustrated because I'm like, this isn't, So
I think she acts her age, which makes me not be annoyed with her because I can see a teenager reacting in the way that she does and like having the justifications that she does. I can see a teenager going through that. Wait, is she a teenager? I assume she is, or like young.
She's 18
20s.
or 19.
She's supposed to be the youngest, isn't she?
Yeah, I don't know how old she is.
Yeah, to me, she just strikes me as a teenager, so I can kind of forgive her strange, I don't know what the word is, but I can kind of forgive her because of her age. I feel like she's 17. Yeah. Oh, overdose chill pill says she's 17. Thank you.
I find her humor try hard and slightly endearing. Like she swings and misses a lot.
Yeah. She was actually the first character that I really cared about because right from the beginning, I said this in one of my earlier videos, which I kind of should probably disown at some point because it's all crap.
It was real. That's the truth.
It was the truth. But like she was the only character like you knew like she was after and like she had a reason to do it. I'm like, okay, I buy this.
Yeah.
And now like then Dalen was introduced and I'm like, okay, I don't care about anyone else. Not really, but yeah, so I think I'm more with you guys now. Like she's kind of hit or miss. But for me, she was the first part of the story where I'm like, okay, I'm willing to read it on and see what's going on.
Yeah, same for me.
I think that if you listen to the audiobooks, her jokes work better. The actors they put some effort into it. And if you're reading it, sometimes you're like, what in the world is she trying to say? Like, why?
Oh, I love her. I think her personality when she engages with people is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like reading her conversations with people. I was so much frustrated at her, but frustrated for her that I'm like, you're on a vain mission. And like,
I mean, you were correct. Clearly her mission does not work very well.
Yeah.
And they're like, just give it up and just stay there and study.
Yeah.
Just do your thing.
Well, Sanderson's really good at giving each character something for us to kind of latch onto, even beyond their desire, to make them interesting. Like Kaladin, he's got his anger and just pure passion, and Shallan has her humor. And I feel like that's what kind of endears us to her, so that we're willing to read through a ton of exposition and other things.
I will say, after Capsule betrays everyone and it's revealed that he's been trying to poison Yasna, it really made me question like all the Ardents and the whole system, and kind of their intentions as a whole, because Capsule is working as a part of a whole. So I'm very skeptical now of the whole religion that they are tied to in general and what their real intentions are, because they seem willing to murder, which is for religious people kind of sketchy, and also just a little bit sketchy. And you also see an Ardent play a political card with that scene with Dalinar.
Yeah.
And we see him like lie on behalf, or he's acting on behalf of that other Bright Lord.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see like how corrupt exactly are the Ardents and what's going on kind of under the surface.
All of that is valid.
But
yeah, all of that is valid. The only thing I would say about Capsule is that it is stated that he was not working with the Ardentia there. He was actually separate there. Though, from unrelated, I guess, from exploring the Cosmere more, I would say that anytime you're reading a Sanderson book and there's an organized religion, you should not trust it.
Yeah.
It seems like he may at least, whether he believes it personally or not, he chooses to portray organized religion usually pretty negatively.
That's true.
And Yasna actually defends in that scene, like right before Capsule poisons them. She actually says something like, it depends on the person. There are very, very good people in every. So there are good individuals in every religion, but Sanderson does definitely choose to organized religion.
Like that one quasi couple who are measuring spread. They're harmless, right?
Yeah.
And making yummy food.
I was just confused. I say that in that very, very short strawberry chapter where the poisoning happens, because you don't get, and I guess maybe we just have to read a little farther, but the next chapter that you get, we get the explanation of, oh yeah, he was poisoning the bread, but Yasna eats the bread, and we don't get any explanation for how she didn't get affected by it. Like in that one scene, it's like she reluctantly chews some in her mouth. So, and then the whole thing about what was wrong with the jam, like there's no, because the antidote had been in his jam the whole time, but then there is this question of this supposed strawberry jam that's like, oh, this smells awful, and I'm not tasting that, and he tastes it, but so I don't know, was that supposed to be an antidote and it wasn't? And so I don't know. I was just a little confused. I was left like, wait, we didn't get some explanations for some things that happened in that scene.
I was confused too, but I thought maybe it was something that I missed. So I'm glad you brought it up. I'm like, oh, okay.
It wasn't
just me.
Mostly it was the how did Yasna not get affected by the bread when she actually ate a bite?
Well, the book's not over yet.
Yeah, well, I think isn't that the last section where we get an entire part of the book without a Shallan POV?
Yeah. Part 4 has no Shallan POVs.
Awesome. Then we don't get to find out.
Oh man.
There's a part 5.
Oh, okay. So we have to wait a whole part.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could just read the other half of the book tomorrow.
That's true. No, I'm not doing that.
I love this. I would not advise it.
No.
It would be half of what you read today.
Yeah,
less than half.
it would. Yeah, no, that's true. It would not be as many pages.
I would recommend just reading a little bit.
Yeah, you've got 14 days now, Kristen. You can pace yourself.
But it means I have to start reading it to a man. Oh man. Yeah, I'm a bad way of King's male since I'm doing all the reading of this book.
We have to read to her like every night.
Yeah, I saw a good meme that said a real man only listens to the audiobook version of The Way of Kings because men don't read.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
That was the meme video of Neil Green, which you said you didn't see, so you must have seen it somewhere
Oh,
else.
I saw a Stormlight specific meme video that Catherine Stormblessed did, which she did that collab with Daniel, but I didn't see the Daniel one.
Nice.
I was afraid of getting Mistborn spoilers. I am so afraid of spoilers. Like I am like overcautious to the max, where I will avoid things at all costs to not get spoilers for something.
I think for Way of Kings, for Stormlight, it's very easy to get spoiled, and for Mistborn because they're so popular, and the more popular something is, just it's much easier for people to forget too. If you haven't read it,
when we're in a circle like this, it's really easy, to forget. Like, oh, you've read all these, you have always read that as well. But
so we just need to make an oath pact, and the next year we're gonna read all of Sanderson's published works, and then just be done with it.
I mean, that's kind of my soft goal anyway.
Right?
Eventually, if I keep reading Sanderson books, I'll run out, I think.
There's really not that many in the grand scheme of, Cosmere books in the grand scheme of it.
Yeah.
There's like 10
Well,
of them out so far.
Yeah,
So
I think I got all the Mistborns to read, and then all of the like Arcanum Unbounded side story stuff.
Yeah. And there's 6 Mistborn out right now, but they're shorter. They're much shorter than this. I mean, everything.
There's 6. Yeah, there's going to be a 7th one.
Yeah.
Good night. There's so many books.
I know. But at least it's well, maybe not. I would say it's slightly easier to stay spoiler free. Like when you're about books, when you're out and about, it's not like when an Avengers movie comes out and you can't even go to the grocery store without someone spoiling it.
Yeah.
Kayla, you are describing my exact scenario where we as a group had kind of considered trying to read Rhythm of War together, and I was like, I'm sorry, but as soon as I get that book, I'm gonna have to marathon it because I do not want to get spoiled.
Dude, I've tried so hard to like stay like on the reading schedule for Way of Kings. Christy, I'm sorry, I can't promise I'm gonna stay like on pace with the rest of it.
I wouldn't have done it with Words of Radiance. I read that book in a week, which is crazy to me.
That one's pretty hard because that's like my favorite one ever because it's just like there's just amazing reveals at every turn.
Yeah. For me, my only kind of redeeming thought is that To Sleep in a Sea of Stars comes out midway through the Words of Radiance read through, so like I can like hopefully like try to forget about Words of Radiance for a few minutes to read the other book.
That's true. Oh, there's so many good books coming out this year, and there's already so many books I haven't read. I sound like I'm complaining, but I really am excited.
I will say this. So, well, first, thank you, Michael, officially for sending me Twilight. I am reading it. I am going to do the video you want us to do on why the Twilight movie didn't work.
Woo!
Yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to Way of Kings. Not that I'm not telling anything that anyone.
It has equal billing on my channel. It's just as good.
It's the writing is so pedestrian.
How far are you?
Like 20 something pages in.
Okay.
Not very far.
20 some pages into The Way of Kings, you were actually super pro, right? Because that was this. I can't remember. What was your take at 20 pages into The Way of Kings?
I mean, I love the prelude, and I guess 20 pages in somewhere into the prologue.
You would have been in Kaladin's chapters then, so you may have been negative on The Way of Kings then, man.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But not on the writing.
No, not on the writing.
Yeah.
We don't have Edge Dancer in the schedule here, but I have thrown around the idea of like just doing an Edge Dancer summary because like interesting stuff happens in that book, but it honestly is a little rambly. Like it's the Brandon Sanderson thing that I've read that is the least well paced and like well action packed. So like everything is kind of end loaded. So I feel like something that I would like to do for this group for people that don't have the time or don't want to read Edge Dancer is make some kind of like summary video.
Didn't you say that Edge Dancer is like Sanderson's novella, but it's like really the length of a normal length novel?
Yeah, I want to say the audiobook is about 8 hours, which is it's a short book, but I've read books that are 8 hours long.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down to read it.
It is the least, like the Sanderson book I've liked the least. but I think it's just
Interesting.
because it was mostly. I mean, it kind of is filler.
But is it better than Twilight?
It's impossible. I can't choose between my children. I can't choose, unlike Bella. So
Twilight, Michael. Didn't you give it 4 stars?
I gave the first Twilight 4 stars.
That is so fun.
But I gave the Stormlight. I gave the Way of Kings like this is my favorite book of all time. So
You basically broke Goodreads for that.
yeah.
I think you've
All of Stormlight in 1 week.
What?
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 Oh
Wow.
my word!
Oh, Graf, I do remember you mentioning that, like back in June. Yes.
How
Oh.
though? How did you do that?
We have some
Just
competition.
use my method.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Who said that? I missed it. Can't see it.
Graph
Yeah,
filler?
The comment
Yeah,
you put up there
You
said
just
that.
you just posted it, yeah.
Oh, I just did.
Yeah.
It
Oh
was
my
just-
word!
Must have read the whole thing.
The one that was just there.
I just
That's
can't read that
incredible.
fast. I think I'm just too slow of a reader.
Imagine when all 10 books are out. It's gonna be like us trying to read what's that other long series that Sanderson finished? Eye of the World.
Oh,
Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time.
It's just so unwieldy. It's like I want to read it and I've started it, but I don't want to because it's so stinking long. Whereas like Wave Kings now, at least it's or Stormlight Archive. 3 books in, that's not too bad.
It helps. Yeah.
That's why I'm taking very detailed notes of each chapter now.
Right.
Because I can at least go back to those if I don't feel like rereading a book before, by the time we get to the 10th one. I
Yeah.
have some notebooks I can look through.
Right. But watch Sanderson like go ahead and like finish like King Killer Chronicles and Game of Thrones while he's at it too, or something like that.
Oh yeah. He'll help everyone.
Yeah.
It's like I got you.
Yeah. He said that he tweeted or did something on Instagram recently where because he finished the final draft of Rhythm of War officially last week. And he's like, man, that was a long 18 months. Like
Yeah, dude.
most authors
Only?
the heck?
for that size in 18 months.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we should probably wrap it up. Although this is so much fun, I wish we could keep talking. Thank you so much, so much, everybody who's here and commenting with us. Honestly, you guys make this all worth doing. And there's more comments coming in, even as I'm speaking, that I wish I could just read and put on the screen. But we should probably let you go. We've been here for a while, so. But we will be back in 2 weeks, and I actually have the date for you today. So, woo, I finally remembered. And this is the announcements and the description of every video has the announcements in the group, and the description of every video has the schedule. So you can always check it there. But we will be meeting on July 30th, same time, and we will be finishing Way of Kings for the next live stream. So yeah.
I'm so excited.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. And so we will see you then. And thank you again so much for coming and also for chatting in the group. Everybody that I mentioned before, Rich, wow, thank you so much for all the great comments, Rich, here and in the group. We really appreciate that. And everybody who's making videos, I know Kayla and Angela, and there's just so many people who are making videos for Stormlight 2020. Ramsey. So we really appreciate you guys, and we cannot wait to talk with you on the other side.
Yeah.
Alrighty, take care. Have a great night and a great weekend. Stay safe, okay?
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.